Enjoy. There are two types of people in this world. Those that wake up and are ready to go immediately, and those that just can't seem to function until they have their first cup of coffee. Why do people reach for that first cup of coffee? Easy. It's caffeine. So what is caffeine? Caffeine is a stimulant that affects your central nervous system. How does it work? Within your brain, there are receptors. These receptors attract a molecule called adenosine. When the molecule bonds with the receptor, it produces a calming effect, which makes you tired. On the opposite end, caffeine looks very similar to adenosine, but the reaction is completely different. Caffeine tends to stimulate your brain versus calming it. So, where can you find caffeine? Caffeine is found in many of the drinks that you have today. You can find it in coffee, in soft drinks, and in energy drinks. In addition to those, there are some purpose-built mechanisms for digesting and ingesting caffeine, such as NoDoz, and also within your pre-workouts. One other area that most people don't think about as far as getting caffeine intake is through the cocoa bean, and as a result, chocolate. So outside of these areas, there are some manufacturers that are starting to create products where people can ingest caffeine without getting the large amounts of calories, such as caffeine gum and caffeine mints. So why do we take all of these products? Easy. Caffeine is a performance enhancer in two different ways. First off, caffeine can help you stay awake. It helps keep you alert. When I was in tech school, I had to study very long hours prior to taking tests, and I had a ritual where I would study for 8 hours leading up to a test. In order to do this, I would ingest heavy amounts of caffeine so that I could push through and concentrate. At the same time, during class, because I stayed up all night, I would have an issue with falling asleep. So during breaks, I would go grab NoDoz and take more caffeine. So it increased my alertness level. In addition to staying alert, caffeine is also used as a performance enhancer. Caffeine has a way of keeping your body from feeling the fatigue that is caused during normal workouts. That's why you start seeing some of these pre-workouts contain such high amounts of caffeine. In a study that was done amongst active bodybuilders, they found that there was a 9% increase in strength gains by those bodybuilders that took caffeine versus those bodybuilders that just took a placebo. So it's obvious caffeine has some great benefits, but are there any drawbacks? Answer is yes. So first off, caffeine is a diuretic, and since it's a diuretic, it has a tendency to raise your blood pressure. This may not be an issue for a lot of people, but for those that have a history of heart disease or high blood pressure, it can throw you over the edge. In addition, since it raises your blood pressure, it increases your reaction to stressful situations, which can ultimately lead to heart disease. When I was stationed in the desert, they used to hand out Red Bull, and many people would grab Red Bull in order to stay awake and pass the time while they were deployed. One instance, an Army soldier went and drank too much Red Bull and died of a caffeine overdose. As a result, they had to pull caffeine out of the dining facility, and nobody ever got to drink it for free again. In addition to that situation, there was a story of an Ohio teenager that overdosed on caffeine 5 days before graduation. He overdosed because he was studying for his finals and he was under immense pressure to pass and graduate. He was found with 70 micrograms of caffeine, where 20 is considered lethal. So he was 3.5 times over the lethal limit just because he was under such pressure to pass his test. So in addition to the obvious side effects of death, caffeine does have some addiction associated with it. This manifests in jitteriness and common headaches. So how much is really good to take without getting addicted? There's no good answer for you. It's all based on your body mass and your history of taking caffeine. Over time, when you take caffeine, your body recognizes that it's not absorbing enough adenosine, so it creates more receptors. Now you have to drink more caffeine to fill all those other receptors, which is what the tolerance comes from. So the average input for the average human right now is 35 to 40 milligrams per day. Behind, you'll see the average amount of caffeine contained in most of the drinks you see today. Based on this chart, you'll see that brewed coffee and pre-workouts tend to have higher levels of caffeine than your everyday tea and soda. So, in conclusion, caffeine has its pluses and minuses. But don't let anybody fool you. It is a drug. And with drugs, you have to be very careful. Caffeine is very addictive. It'll manifest in headaches, moodiness, and a lack of concentration. In an effort to mitigate some of these effects of withdrawal, you need to make sure that you exercise regularly, you sleep, and most importantly, take caffeine in moderation. Don't keep adding 1 cup, then 3 cups, and 5 cups of coffee because you're going to go into high withdrawal symptoms at some point. So to summarize, would I recommend caffeine? Absolutely. I take it every day. I know plenty of people that take it every day. And quite honestly, it can be very useful when you have to listen to a briefing that you have absolutely no interest in hearing. Thank you very much.